seriously, we've got an absolutely brilliant contributor next, Professor Amanda Kirby. She's an academic at Cardiff University and CEO of Do It Solutions Limited. She has an international reputation in the field of research and clinical work related to developmental disorders. Leading author in the field, trained over 15,000 professionals in health and education and workplace settings, worked with the RAF and assortments of other organisations. And to be honest, I was first introduced to her by people within the DWP who highly regard the work that she's done, and I'm sure by the time you've heard her, you'll understand why. Would you please welcome Professor Amanda Kirby.
Thank you very much. I see you've all got fudge on your seats. You're going to have a sort of sugar rush now, aren't you? I can see that, eating it. Thank you very much for your kind introduction. I'm going to talk a bit about neurodiversity and really think about what it's like for you as an employer and what your fears or misconceptions might be about employing somebody. And I can give you a rationale for why you should. I suppose, first of all, what's it all about? There are terms that you don't understand. When people apply, they might disclose they've got autism spectrum disorder, they might disclose other things, and that can be sort of really fearful because you think, I'm not an expert, what can I do? How do I do it? And you might be confused by the sort of terms that are bandied around. And I think that's the first problem, in the sense that we start labelling people. Well, I don't know what that is, I don't know. But we're actually talking about people, and that's what I want to talk about this afternoon in many ways, and to really highlight how you can take on people in employment very readily. So we maybe have confusion over those terms. So we're going to talk people. And every organisation, I believe, needs a mix of people doing different jobs with a range of strengths and varying diversity. And actually, fitting that together and getting the right mix in your organisation will mean that you're a much more effective employer and be more successful. And I think that's where we need to start recognising that people with neurodiversity bring those shapes into the party and actually help to provide skills in your workplace. So I'm going to start making you feel a little bit uncomfortable, and I want you to have a look and see what you can see up there. Not uncomfortable, because some of you are going to recognise immediately what that picture is. Can you all anybody shout out what that is? Silence? Can't you see what's up there? Well, what? Canada. Not Canada. Sorry, you're wrong. A cow. Who said a cow? Brilliant. How many cows? How many people can see it's a cow? Not all of you. Now, it is a black and white Frisian, actually, that you're seeing. And the point is, as you start to look and you see ears and eyes and nostrils, you start to make the shape out. You can start to understand that's a cow. The point is, I'm showing you a picture that gradually some of you are going, oh, and some of you are still going, oh. And the point is that what we see and what we say, for some of us, we can see it and understand it straight away, and for others, we need to be given more information. We need to show exactly what it is and point it out. But once we've pointed it out, we can then see what others are seeing. So what you see and what you hear and how you interpret it, every one of you in this room may be different, but maybe you're neurodiverse. We're on this spectrum of neurodiversity. If you can't see it's a cow, you come and see me afterwards, okay? Okay, what could anybody want to join in? Anybody read and understand what I put up there now? If you do, you'll do something. No, none of you can read this. So it says, if you understand this, stand up and I'll give you £100. So sorry, you failed. The point is that sometimes how you do a job description and how you ask people to do a job and you give too many instructions, or the information or the words that you put down or the way you present it means that it looks like that and you don't understand it. So as you're doing your job descriptions, as you're doing your interviews, you need to make sure that the person in front of you is understanding what's being asked of them, because they could feel in the same way as you do and miss out on opportunities. Can you see whether that's the same or different? Two images. So some people are going to have very good visual skills and be able to see that that is actually the same rather than different. Some of you are going to need a lot longer. And that's the other point, that actually sometimes to do the job and to do it successfully and then to be able to do it well for many years, you just need a little bit longer in the training period. It doesn't mean you can't do the job. It's a bit like learning to drive a car. Some of us will have had 10 lessons, some will have had 50 lessons, some will have had 100 lessons. But it doesn't mean you can't end up not being able to drive a car. You might need longer for the skills. So can you read that? No? What about that? Can you give me the information? Can you extract the information? The point is, if I switch on quickly, maybe I haven't given you enough time. By just changing some things around your accessibility in terms of your approaches, you can actually make more people available and able to join your workplace. Adaptations, as we've heard, don't need to be expensive. They can be easy when you understand the small changes that can actually have a big impact. So take 100 people. 1 in 8 of the mainstream population will have a hidden impairment or have 1 or more hidden impairments. 1 in 4 in the unemployed population, 1 in 3 in the offending population. And I think this is a travesty if we see that those individuals can't be in employment like anyone else. So what conditions does it include? Well, a number of different ones, of which I'm obviously not going to have time to go into today. But this is an umbrella of conditions. Autism, as we heard, affects around 1 to 1.5% of the population. ADHD, 2 to 3%. Dyscalculia, 3 to 6%. I'm going to test you on this afterwards. Dyslexia, 8 to 10%. Dyspraxia, around 3% of the population. Specific language impairments, 2 to 3%. Can you add this up as we're going? Tourette's, around 1%. Well, the thing is, all these add up to around 15% of the population. More than 15% of the population, add them up. And why is that? Because actually there's lots of research evidence that they all overlap. So the person who walks through the door may have one label, but in reality they may have strengths and difficulties in more than one area. Each one of us is an individual. An overlap is the rule rather than the exception. So maybe that makes you more fearful, but actually it's just like ourselves in the room here. We're a mixture of very different people, even though we maybe divide ourselves into males and females. Actually, who we are might be very different and diverse. So people are messy in reality. Each of us is very unique, and understanding that individual in the workplace is actually what we need to do. And actually, it's less of a challenge, not more of a challenge, if we take away all the labels and look at the individual and look at their strengths. But life is complex, and I think we need to be aware of that. And in the stress in the workplace, often it can be something that changes in the workplace, can actually be very stressful for us. But also, things that are going on at home as well can have an impact into the workplace itself. So you might have somebody who has difficulty standing up and talking, like myself, or writing a report or presenting in a meeting. And they can have real anxiety. They're very capable, and they're so capable they've been advanced in their workplace. They've got so much anxiety, they're not sleeping at home, and they're worrying, and then they go to work and they're not performing very well. And I know that because I run a clinical centre, I'll tell you about in a moment, where I see exactly that with adults, where something in the workplace or something at home can have this knock-on effect. So what stops you taking someone on? Well, maybe you're saying, well, I'm not an expert in this. I wouldn't know what to do. What if I get it wrong? I think that fear of I might do something wrong and I might get myself into trouble, or I've had a bad experience, or I haven't got time, or it's too much work. Well, you can see by the previous speaker how actually just stopping and listening to the individuals that walk through your doors, that actually you have time to do that. And in fact, it's well worth it. As Peter Vardy said at the beginning, you've got somebody who's going to stay in work, and that is really amazing to have somebody who will stay with you. And you're probably already having champions working in your business, either with you or coming into your business or as customers as well. I want 2 minutes just to say why I got into this. I was a GP, a quite happy GP in a practice, working in adult psychiatry as well. And my middle son, was diagnosed at 3 with dyspraxia, first of all, then ADHD, and then dyslexia. He's a neurodiverse character. He's now 30. And at 3, I started this experience of going and seeing clinicians, and I was telling his story over and over again. And I got frustrated about that because I didn't know how to manage the vagaries of education. And I set up a centre about 20 years ago, which is now part of the university. I wanted to know what was going to happen next to my son. He's very bright, he's capable, and he's gorgeous. I would say that, I'm his mother. But the point was, I wanted to maximize his skills, and I wanted to make sure that he had a future. And when he started, he's 30 now, when he started trying to find jobs, we went through a whole bit of do you disclose or not? And when he said to me, well, shall I disclose some of it, or shall I disclose all of it? Shall I say I've got ADHD, autism, dyslexia, dyspraxia? How do you think that's going to go down? Probably not very well. So he decided to selectively disclose to start with, because we could see that if actually he's presented the whole thing, employers might be very frightened of that. He now works for Mind. He works for a great charity, and he's an information officer, and he's working very well. But he still gets stressed, and he still gets anxious, and I still worry about that balance between work and life. But he's had a massive amount of support around him. In my professional experience, I set up a centre, as I said, 20 years ago, and I see, and part of my work is do it, which I'll tell you about in a second, but part of it is I still see adults, and a lot of my research is about adults in employment who have neurodiversity. My concern today is I see lots of adults who've got parents coming with them in their 60s and 70s, and they're worrying about what's going to happen to their child when they die. And I see people coming along to me who are perfectly capable and able, many of them graduates, who are sitting at home and not working. And it isn't right and it's not fair. And I think with small amounts of adjustments, we can actually get those people into the workplace. And the social benefit, the emotional benefit, the benefit to society, and the cost to society, and who you get a great worker. My son is truly committed. He was with me, and he was going to a meeting, and I saw him yesterday evening, and he's been ill all week, and with a cold and everything. But he was determined to go into work. I wasn't sure that was a good idea completely, because he was going to give everybody else a cold. But he'll turn up, and he'll be a loyal worker, and that's what you're going to get. My professional experience drove me to develop the Do It Profiler, and this is a computer profiling system that we're using in education and employment to understand the individual, not the label. I want to know what the barriers to education and employment for that individual is in the context of their lives, and that's what the profiler is doing. And we're working with North East Autism Alliance to work to help others get into employment successfully. I really do feel that's really important, that we understand the individual. And we're working with some organisations where we're doing reverse job matching. So job descriptions are often awful. The job descriptions I've had and jobs that I've gone into are never quite like the job itself in reality. And what we've been doing is reverse job matching, and one of the organisations we're working with is Admiral, and we've been going into the organisation and looking at what people who are doing the job are doing, because we say if they can do the job, that is the job description. And then matching and looking at what the person's skills are against that, and then looking where the skills gaps are. And actually it's helping us to think about concepts of job carving as well. Because you start to see, actually, in a team of 40 people, not everybody's got the skills, and you can move people into better placements, so it's got an advantage for employers as well. Okay, practical experience, that's what the books were. They were about what we've learned in all those places. The profiler is there and is working, and if you want more information about it, please talk to us and talk to North East Autism Alliance, how we can work with you. But it's a partnership, because we want to help support that individual, and it's working with the Alliance and others who go into the workplace to support that individual and help you. That's actually how it's going to work. Making reasonable adjustments in the workplace isn't a big deal. It's sometimes about altering the environment. That might be changing the place where somebody's sitting. It might be, I worked with a GP who had autism, and he was needing to have his medical kit organised into compartments when he went out to do house calls. Sometimes the adjustments are actually about going to B&Q and getting a box. It's that sort of practical adjustment we're talking about. It's sometimes about adapting the task. It's about listening and asking that individual what will work for them. So what I ask you is really ask what works for that individual. Have that dialogue, and that's the starting point. Ask what helps, what makes a difference, what makes the situation worse or better. And you're on your way to making those adjustments. Do think about your wording in your adverts, because I sometimes think about opening the door to individuals to apply is how you word your adverts, and small changes in that can make a big difference. In terms of accessibility, think about your application forms. I've had a number of people who are applying and the application form's online and it times out. Or the boxes shift around and so you can't put your words in and the box doesn't expand. And you may have lost somebody in that process by just that happening. Be explicit about what you want to be done. People with autism need to know exactly what the job is, not what it might be and how it might vary, but what it actually is. And do something which is regular review the work. That might be 5 minutes once a day just to go, what have we got to do today? Let's set what needs to be done and have a review at the end of the day. Small amounts of support really can make a massive difference. And really find solutions rather than look for the problems. Sometimes we'll keep talking about the barriers, but sometimes we just need to be more solution-focused, starting 10 minutes earlier to miss the traffic, or earlier in the day, or leaving earlier in the day, or not making sure there isn't a hot desking. And do establish your processes. Now, in the back of your pack, there are a couple of things that we put together to give away free today for you. One is the little booklet, which has got lots of practical strategies, and the flyer. I'm a pragmatist, so even though I'm a researcher and a clinician, I really know we need starting points. So we put this flyer together for you, and it really has got just some very practical strategies. And if you started with those, we'd actually be quite a long way along the process. And if you want more information, please contact me about Workplace Profiler as well. Thank you very much.